you're just joining back, welcome. My name's Leah Lauder. I'm a mega church cult survivor. I spent 18 years in a mega church cult. Welcome back, my G's. You know when you've moved with like real drillers and then you heard like these guys trying to chat road in these settings? It's so funny. I'm like, babe, just be yourself. Be a 304. You know, that's what you always been, chair. That's why you always been. You were never the gangster. You were never that in the group, chair. They HATE to see us coming. Listen, chair, we're just doing up we're doing up an all-nighter, an all-night session. And this is what we are used to. We are used to doing the all-nighter. Do you understand? There's nothing like listening to some late night jazz, you know, in the evening. Oh, it's absolutely glorious, isn't it? Jazz just takes me to another place. I feel so rich and elegant. And that's why, you know, when I'm like, I date these rich men and stuff, it's so nice. You know, when you go into the restaurants and it's the live music, I love it. But if I was out and I really say like I had like a jackpot guy, I'd sing alive. I'd sing like a Whitney Houston. I'd sing like I Will Always Love You or something. Yeah. I'd sing a little bait song. I wanna be loved by you, just you, nobody else but you. You get me? Just get on the mic with the live piano. Thanks, Daenerys. I love you. So then just, you know, that just puts me to star quality because I was already looking like a 10 chair. And now I'm just going to sing. So you know what it is and what I look like. Just keep your eyes here. Like, you get me? This is just a bit of pre-chat. You get me? It's crazy to think that we were doing up church, you know, wearing our dolly shoes and our long skirts. Do you remember when we were getting the dresses, chair? They're always on the dresses. You know, I forgot. Like, these people, we used to have this girl who was LGBTQ plus, yeah. And when I tell you, they used to, you know what our people, chair. They'll be telling this girl, like, she has to wear a skirt. She was a spy for Bishop Richard. You know the mugs in my cult, they have spies, chair. Let's get into it, guys. I've been looking at how indoctrination affects the brain. Just to give a little recap, please do go to the part 1 because I'm not going to go through all of this, but I'm going to give a little recap on how they indoctrinate us. It's through fair conditioning and the alarm system, through rewiring the amygdala brain. Thank you for the follow. They also do up reward, hijack and intermittent reinforcement. That's the dopamine, the oxytocin, the hit that they need for that high. They become addicted to the setting. There's codependency that's formed and trauma bond relationships. So you don't have real relationships in there. They are by free bounded choice and they are forced, okay? And a lot of the time manufactured. So the pastor will say, oh, Lucy, be friends with Jennifer. She's doing well, but she needs someone who's been around for a long time to strengthen her in the Lord. So thought stopping and language capture that we spoke about, the thought stopping techniques, that's when they get defensive, they don't want to hurt anything. Social pain and conformity circuits, so that was looking at the survivor impact being terror of being alone, urge to return for relief, and when they rewire this part of the anterior cingulate cortex part of the brain, it's difficult for survivors to process social rejection, even like physical pain, so that they can't feel, guys. That's why we say that it's like you become numb. You physically can't feel. The adrenaline that they're on and the dopamine hit that they're on, they would do anything for the mog. Do you understand? And whatever, with whatever means necessary, they don't feel. Okay. So let's move on to memory editing and reconsolidation. So each retelling of testimonies and miracles can reconsolidate miracles to fit the gap story. So remember I said they over sensationalize, they add things. So you could have been someone in uni who had a substance and alcohol misuse issue, so you were picking up large bits, yeah, and maybe like helping your friends out every so often when they couldn't pick up, so you might, you know, just shot little bits. Now all of a sudden that turns into you being the top shotter in Northumberland. Do you know what I mean? So, and then also it could have been where you might have had a man and he might have just been a shotter and you weren't really around, you were more like just, or you weren't even his girl, you were just getting your back blown out. Then it turns into, oh, I was his wife. And, you know, then it turns into you were cooking, you were chopping up, you were doing this. It's just lies. Okay, that's the memory editing and reconsolidation, because there's so much pressure to sell the cult, and you want to do well, you want to make your spiritual daddy look good. Do you know what I mean? Because there's that emotional manipulation, there's that adrenaline rush where You know, when people are, you know, they're in the adrenaline, they're in the rush of it, they just start saying things because people are clapping. Do you understand what I'm saying? And they know what it means for the cult and for the cult leader, because they're getting GROOM'd, and they're getting indoctrinated to think and feel that way because they don't feel. So they feel the way they've been indoctrinated to feel. Christ first in the cup. So negative events get reframed as your fault. So lack of faith, protecting the leader from accountability. Before we move into this, I do actually want to say that they also erase events and reframe them. So you could have had a mum that weren't the best, but she weren't like ABUSE, but all of a sudden she's the worst person in the world, disorganized attachment, because they do bring down like Jezebels and women of the world and women that aren't married. So if you come from that kind of background where you've got a mum who's like maybe never been married, and you know she's got like kids like out of wedlock and things like that, then you will start to look at her like the Jezebel, because they're talking about your mum, bro. Do you get it? So negative events get reframed as your fault, lack of faith, protecting the leader from accountability. So, you know, the other day I did some content and Dag was using the word we, and, you know, when we get persecuted, and but he's not looking at himself. Like, he's not being accountable for the things that have come out of his mouth. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, it gets put back on the cult, even though they're working hard, and it's even harder for them because of the reputation he has, because of the amount of enemies he has. But you see how it's like the cult's fault. Yeah. Wait, let me see why they've given me a restriction. Your live is not eligible contact with low visual quality or static imagery. Oh, I see. Oh, okay. That's not yeah, that's all right, chair. Minakir. Minakir. All right. So the impact on survivors. So this will result in foggy sense of what actually happened, self-blame, confusion when trying to narrate your story. So this is going to be, you know, an outcome or an adverse impact of gaslighting, consistent narcissistic abuse. And then you just feel like you're walking on eggshells. So because of the trauma, you know, you don't remember a lot of things, and they reshape a lot of your experiences as well. So do you see how the sense of reality becomes distorted? So you go into psychosis. So it's like parents who brought up their child well and this and that. All of a sudden your life has been so traumatic and you needed to be saved. And it's like, I did my best with you. I gave you the best like childhood that I could. So do you see how they reshape your sense of reality? And then the next point is elastatic load, body cost of chronic stress. So the elastatic load, yeah, this is going into medical terms. The elastatic load, body cost of chronic stress. So the load of long-term stress shifts your baseline. Irritability, fatigue, gut issues, poor concentration. So the body cost is the chronic stress. So remember I said to you guys that I've got long-term health issues, disability. This is because of the chronic stress, the chronic pressure, never feeling like anything's good enough, always having to go above and beyond to please them, and nothing's ever good enough. That is, it's the elastatic load to your brain, chair. Yeah, so the stress, it shifts the baseline. And so you become more irritable, you suffer from fatigue, and that's chronic fatigue in there. And it's so funny because my Addison's, one of the main symptoms is this chronic fatigue that I get, chair. But it's like you're not clocking it when you're in there because you're not thinking that the blooming church is causing this. You're coming to, you know, praise the Lord, and it's not, you're not clocking it. You're not connecting the dots, chair. The body adapts to high control, high pressure, toxic environments, fast, high pressure environments. Your body starts to adapt to it because you have to adapt and become malleable to what's going on in the cult. And it's like a conveyor belt. They're like rats on a wheel. Do you know what I mean? Like, and if you're not going with the speed and the pace of the cult, you get left behind. And they will tell you that you'll get left behind if you don't keep up, if you're not. So that's why people like with disabilities, people who have impairments, people who, it's like they're not high functioning members because they need people to be out. So someone with a walking impairment, or do you know what I mean? They're not as mobile. those kind of people are not going to be as high functioning. You get it? Because they can't move as fast, they can't bring as many people, they can't be doing the outreach. It's going to take a lot more, putting a lot more things in place to accommodate someone like that, and they just don't care. Because it's about numbers. It's not about the individual getting the experience, getting to go out and share the gospel with people. It's about bums on seats equals coins. It's about numbers. It's about targets. Everyone's a number. All right. So your body adapts to this high control environment. Is white heart here? Oh, it's a different live. Because she was saying like she feels guilty not going to church and things like that. And that is because our body has adapted to this high control environment. So we're in fight and flight mode. We've been used to being under chronic stress, chaotic environments. So when it comes to just like nothing, we'll start to feel depressed. The traumatic flashbacks will come back, all of that. So you have got to find, whether it be spiritual practices, coping mechanisms, distractions, hobbies, things that you can do actively to get yourself out of that space. Because what you used to use for that was the church cult, was the meetings, was, you know, you were addicted to the environment. So now you've got to find something else to fill that gap. Yeah, it's like an ex, but I wouldn't suggest just relationship jumping and just getting some D after. I would always say heal, get it out of your system, level up in your mind, body and soul and your wardrobe before you start stepping out and do it, so that you're at your most confident, you're at your most emotionally stable. And I would say the same to people coming out of these CCs. When you are divorcing these high control groups, you need to take time to process, to really heal from that environment. And so your eyes are wide open. You can identify green flags, red flags. You can identify beige flags. There's all different types of flags that you can identify because you are healing and working your way through it. Can I please ask that if there's any anonymous survivors on the FYP, can you come in and help us protect the space? Because as you can see, they are doing the most to get me off tonight, Chair. So why malignant narcissists demand worship? This is from a neuroscience angle. External regulation of a fractured self. Your attention and adoration regulate the leader's unstable inner state. Your gaze, his calm. There's a power loop. Your fair responses, which come from the amygdala, plus the group dopamine highs, equal biofeedback that crowns him as the anointed, reinforcing his delusion of grandiosity. So you can see that because they've regulated the whole functioning of your brain, what happens here is, especially with the amygdala, which controls your responses, your critical thinking, your ability to pick up, you know, fear, potential danger ahead, etc. When you mix that in with the group dopamine, because remember, they've indoctrinated you to not be able to see that danger ahead, to not be able to feel, sense, touch. That part of self is cut off. So when it's just this high, this oxytocin, this dopamine, that's why they're so RADICL and it's CAL and they're so like, do you know what I mean? It's that thing going on. Do you understand? That's the neuroscience behind it. That is the reason for that behavior. Does that make sense, my loves? Information monopoly by controlling inputs. He controls your prediction system. The brain prefers familiar stories over true ones when stressed. So they do that a lot. There's a lot of narrative. If you're wondering what those cult jargons are those narcissistic rants that they go on, it's information monopoly. They're controlling inputs, and it's all indoctrination. It's all indoctrination. So those call and response things, you know, when they say something, he's like, forgive, what a shock, all of that. That's controlling our prediction system. They're GROOM in us, and we can also put the cult jargon within there, okay? It like appeases our brain. So it's like that supply, that codependency when we're coming for the indoctrination, because remember, addiction it's a very toxic cycle. So you can see the exact same patterns of cyclical ABUSE with substance and alcohol misuse. We see exactly the same with these CCs, and I will do some content on that, because that would be interesting to do actually. Leah, include that in the book. I think that's important for me to include in the book, and I will do so. All right, So this is the last part, guys, and then I'm going to be changing accounts. So if you're still riding with me, get on this ride. Choo, choo, choo. On the Leah train of love. And we gonna go on to the father wounds after this. But this is the last piece. So how this affects survivors after leaving. Because I wanted to put in a little bit about how it affects you after leaving. And then there is a part on recovery. But I'm going to do a separate live on that, guys, tomorrow. So how this affects survivors after leaving. So we get triggers. This is the CPTSD. So decline in mental health, physical health, but we'll start with the triggers. So songs, phrases, leaders' images or leader's image, the leader's voice, members from the cult, rapidly reactivate fair and reward pathways. Okay. So that's where you get the traumatic flashbacks coming back. Because of the neuroscience, because of how they've rewired the brain. Remember I said when you leave physically, but psychologically you don't leave. So all of that, there's been really heavy duty indoctrination that's been done up and your whole brain has been rewired. That's the point of deprogramming and deconstruction. Putting new information, programming yourself with new information, but also cult psycho ed, which will help you to make sense of and understand and process what happened to you and make sense of it. That's how you heal from a past relationship as well. Understanding were they a narcissist, were they a psychopath, were they, were they emotionally unavailable? Really sitting down and making sense of, why you allowed someone to take advantage of you like that and why you were so desperate, or why you allowed someone to use an ABUSE you in that way. And similarly, we need to do the same thing with these environments too. It doesn't mean because they're religious that there should be, a special, green pass that they get to ABUSE people. No, it doesn't work that way. All right. So it affects survivors through triggers, ambivalence. So Lucia, with ambivalence, isn't there ambivalent attachment as well? So this can also, it rewires your attachment as well. So you could have had a secure attachment growing up. You go into one of these environments, you receive this guy as your spiritual daddy and mummy. You've never experienced narcissistic ABUSE in your life and they expose you to that. And so now you have to heal from the disorganized ambivalent attachment that you have as a result of them doing up spiritual currency exchange, making you believe you're now born again spiritually. So spiritually you're like a born again baby that needs to desire the earnest, sincere milk of the word, and you've got to look up to this leader who's going to teach you everything, and this cult leader's got all the anointing and you've got to catch the anointing to get closer to God. There's a middleman. They've completely broken down your whole internal reality of how you view and perceive God. Like, that's how deep it is. Yeah, they've taken away your free will, and they're also indoctrinating you without your knowledge. All right. Decision fatigue. So without imposed rules, the prefrontal cortex has to grow back executive strength. All right. So there were so many rules and there were so many structures and so many systems. It goes from being in like a really strict boarding school or like a prison, like a secure estate, to now being out in the world. Remember, they've demonized this world. This is the big bad world, black and white thinking. Everyone's the DEVIR. Now you're discarded. You're back out into the big bad world. So you've got to compartmentalize that now. You've got to deconstruct. You've got to reintegrate back into society. But you've got to understand that you now have decision fatigue because there's not imposed rules. You're not in a dictatorship anymore. A survivor on TikTok says they completely contradicting themselves because we were worshipping the prophet. Yes, we definitely were. And there is a lot of contradiction, but we don't notice it because of the cognitive dissonance, the sleep deprivation, our trauma that we're carrying. A lot of us enter into there with a lot of trauma. So we could argue that, do we even have the mental capacity to make those decisions and choices and to really process the information? Did we understand, neurologically what was going on? And then further to that, there's vulnerable adults and vulnerable children that are coming into these settings and they've got undiagnosed, issues around like neurodivergence and mental health issues and things like that, And so it makes them so vulnerable. And then the mogs and the leaders don't know what the heck they're talking about. They don't have the knowledge. Do you know what I mean? Some of them are packing boxes in the evening and then advising people about, big life-changing opportunities like JP Morgan and, I don't bloody know, like which master's course they should take and 100 six-figure jobs and stuff, and they just don't have the understanding or the knowledge to be able to advise people at this level. But because they're anointed and they've been in the cult for 10 years, they're in the pastor's area, and you know, they've done all the exams and all the books, that's what makes them qualified to advise you or dictate to you or instruct you on what decisions to make, which are life-changing permanent decisions. Share. That's how deep it is. And the last one is relational injury. Trust systems were exploited. Intimacy may feel risky or unreal. So we come out with major trust issues. There's so much to unpack with this one, guys. So that is why I wouldn't say open yourself up to anyone. When you come out, don't go trying to make friends, because you're very unhealed. You've got a lot of trauma. You're going to attract a lot of people like energy vampires, narcissists, like those people who are just going to feed off your energy. So I would say go into like a season of like a hermit mode of getting to know and love yourself, taking some time out to really understand, to feel your body so that you can pick up on vibes. Like, do you get a funny feeling in your stomach every time you're around someone that's a bit off? You know, understand, listening to your body, to the beat of your own heart, understanding, you know, when you get that feeling not to go out or not to do something, you know, and then it's like, oh my God, I had that feeling, I shouldn't have done that. So you've got to spend that time to date yourself, to love yourself, to find out about, know thyself. Take some time out to really get to know you. And then once you've done that and you're in a better space, then you can start to form healthy relationships, because any relationships that you're going to form after that is just going to be trauma bonds. And that's why I make it clear that we're not forming trauma bonds. We are a collective of survivors that are supporting each other through our healing journey. That's what we're doing up. And what that allows us to do is be in the present moment, but also form healthy relationships, because we're all on the same frequency. We're all on the same wave of wanting to heal and wanting to move forward in life, and discussing key areas around our healing journey that can help us as a collective, and sharing in that. It's not a trauma bond. And that's why even with our social interactions and the conversations and the survivor link-ups that we have, it's all a part of us learning and growing, because we have trust issues. So even something like taking that step to come to a survivor link-up, that's why I say even coming onto the lives is a huge step, because it takes trust. People are scared, they're paranoid to come on, that they might be seen. So when you're doing all of these things, even just being a part of the collective, this is all a step to take towards your healing journey. So thank you so much for listening. YouTube, if you've got to the end, well done, my good and faithful servant. Please remember to subscribe.